came from Right Brain.
Hi guys, welcome back to Right Brain Brewery here in Traverse City. My name is Ryan and I'll be doing the third in our Beer Geek Explains video series. This week we're talking about clean water in the brewing process. We start here at Right Brain Brewery in Traverse City. And if you think about Traverse City, if you've ever been here, everything that makes Traverse City great all requires clean water. We have beautiful beaches, wonderful swimming, hiking, kayaking, even skiing, snowboarding, and especially beer all need clean water. It might seem weird for a brewery to be making a video about clean water, but if you think about it, it really does make perfect sense. Water is the most common ingredient in beer, making up anywhere from 80 to 97% of the beer. Not only is it the most common ingredient, it's the most important ingredient too. It doesn't matter if you have the best grains, hops, yeast in the entire world. If you have dirty water, you're going to make bad beer. So let's do a nice little visual demo here to show how important clean water is in beer. We have 2 cups of beer here. We'll let the beer represent the actual ingredients in the beer without the water. So the head can represent the yeast, and the beer itself will represent the grains and hops. On one side, we'll add some nice, clean, pure Michigan tap water. On the other side, we can add some of the same water, but we'll add some green food coloring to serve as pollution. A couple drops will do. So let's add them together and see what happens. We take the clean water, add it to our beer, and you get a lovely, beautiful amber colored ale. Nice and clear. Let's take the polluted water to our beer and see what it looks like. As you can see, just how important water is. It's a completely different color there. You get this lovely green concoction, kind of muddy and gross looking. It's important that brewing water not only be clean, but also plentiful. It takes anywhere from 3 to 10 pints of water just to make 1 pint of beer. And by 2030, the government predicts that almost half the world's population will be living in areas of high water stress. If so many people are struggling every single day just to have access to clean water, you can think what that might mean for your favorite local brewery. Here in northern Michigan, we are literally surrounded by the world's largest freshwater supply. And with worldwide water pollution and overuse on the rise, freshwater ecosystems like the Boardman Lake behind me are especially vulnerable. While you can't tell right now, increased temperatures due to global warming put the Great Lakes at an increased risk to invasive species like zebra mussels and Asian carp. We are in a farming region, and agricultural runoff like pesticides, manure, and fertilizer can drastically alter a water supply. In fact, nitrogen is now the most common chemical in groundwater aquifers and is expected to rise 10 to 20% over the next 3 decades. Now that we've talked about the importance of clean water in making beer, let's talk about what water actually does in the brewing process. Mineral content is incredibly important both today and historically, where breweries would locate themselves next to great sources of water. This concept of terroir greatly influenced the flavor and types of beers that could be made. Terroir is the sense of place. It's the concept that where a product is made affects its flavor. And when a beer is made using local water, it has as much local flavor as wine, coffee, or whiskey. To explain this best, let's take a trip to merry old England for a tale of 2 cities. The 2 most famous cities for brewing beer in England are Burton-on-Trent and London. Historically speaking, these 2 cities had very similar brewing industries. They're actually only a little more than 100 miles apart, so the hops, grains, and even yeast are all somewhat similar, but they have vastly different water profiles. Let's start with Burton-on-Trent, which is actually famous for its water supply and became the brewing capital of England. In Burton-on-Trent, the water source is originally an aquifer, an underground water supply, which filters up through natural gypsum and picks up a high concentration of calcium sulfate. This water is the source for the Trent River, which the town is named after, and is the main water source for the breweries. Water with calcium sulfate in it is known as permanently hard water because boiling won't remove the mineral content, and it's especially known to accent hop bitterness. Directly because of this, Burton-on-Trent quickly became famous for its pale ales. Signature brands like Bass became some of England's highest-selling beers, and it's common for brewers to talk about Burtonizing their water, adding sulfates like gypsum in order to replicate the water supply of Burton-on-Trent. In contrast, London is known as being the birthplace of porter, which in turn led to the creation of stout. London's geology features more limestone, and so its water has a high concentration of calcium carbonate. Water with calcium carbonate in it is known as temporarily hard water because boiling actually precipitates out and removes the calcium carbonate. You can actually see this process happening. Let's take a look. So here we have some water. This is from my house. It's a separate source from the Traverse City water supply, and I know that this water has high temporary hardness. So let's pour it into a pot, boil it, and see what happens. Now that the water has boiled for a little bit, let's take a look. The calcium has precipitated out, so the first stuff to come out is clear, and then on the bottom we can see the actual precipitate. Real milky and thick. If we let that sit for a second, it would actually, you can see it settling out and going to the bottom. So if you want to remove this, you could literally boil your water and just pull from the top. If you continue to boil till all the water evaporates, you can actually see the calcium carbonate scale left in the pan. This white crusty stuff is basically limestone, and this actually came out of the drinking water source at my house. Calcium carbonate contributes to a water's total alkalinity, which is its ability to neutralize acids, affecting its pH. Dark roasted malts are actually a bit acidic, and so you need a little bit of alkalinity to make a dark beer. Directly because of this, London became famous for its porters and dark beers, as opposed to Burton-on-Trent, which is famous for its light beers. Two different water profiles, two very different beers. Right Brain's brewing water comes straight from the Traverse City water supply. This pure, clean water is taken directly from the center of the East Bay and is only carbon filtered to remove chlorine. Our water is wonderful for brewing beer as it is, and no minerals are added back in. When you taste a Right Brain beer, you taste Traverse City. That pure, clean, wonderful water you enjoy so much on the beach is part of what makes a Right Brain pint so great. So what does this mean for Right Brain? We've been blessed to have one of the most pure sources of water available, and we feel a responsibility to take care of it. We do everything we can to limit our water use and our wastewater going out. For example, all the water that goes through our heat exchanger to cool the hot wort is then recollected into storage tanks called hot liquor tanks, where it's then reused. We're also currently working on a project to convert old fermentation tanks into more hot water storage tanks. So how can you help? Earlier this year, Right Brain Brewery joined the Natural Resource Defense Council's Brewers for Clean Water campaign, a nationwide coalition of brewers allied to promote the safeguarding of clean water sources. To learn more, visit them at nrdc.org or follow the link on the screen. So thanks for tuning in. Don't forget, you can always submit questions at rightbrainbrewery.com, Facebook, or Twitter, #RBB Beer Geek. So let's raise a toast to clean water. And until next time, beer no evil.